Welcome back in, everybody. It's Drilling Deeper, a Pit and Quarry podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Yannick, editor-in-chief of the magazine. Jack Kapansky is off today. He's actually out in Columbus, Ohio for the Ohio Aggregates and Industrial Minerals Association show. So it's just me today as your host, but we're going to be bringing in several guests to talk about what's happening in equipment and technology, trends in that area, and we'll be diving into a lot of different topics today, like condition monitoring, predictive maintenance, AI, electrification, and you've heard some of our interviews to this point from the Mine Expo show. You know, it was a great place to kind of get together, not only to see what was happening actually within exhibits in Las Vegas, there at the Las Vegas Convention Center, but to bring people into our booth and to hear from them what it is they're seeing. You know, not only that show, which is right at the end of September, but what they're seeing develop, what they're hearing from customers, what they're anticipating to be coming to the mining and the aggregates industry. And, you know, as I mentioned, we had a few guests join us and shared their insights on that topic at Mine Expo. And so today you're going to be hearing from the following five people in this order. It's Karen Thompson. She's the president of Haver Boecker Niagara's North America and Australia operations. Kirby Klein. He's at Masaba, where he is the Western U.S. Territory Manager. Stefan Giraudin, sales manager at Montabert. With Philippi-Hagenbuch, we were joined by Jim Chamberlain, a regional sales manager at Phil. And finally, another regional sales manager, one at Regal Rexnord, Canada, Gary Baldwin, joined us, again, to talk about trends in equipment and technology. And, you know, if you listen to Drilling Deeper or picked up the magazine, you know, in recent months, you know, this is an ever-evolving thing for not just aggregates, but mining. You know, we heard a lot about AI, and we have, you know, not just at Mine Expo, but for the last year, and how the pace of change, the pace of technology development is really at a rapid level at this point. And I was actually, you know, in recent weeks at a Command Alcon conference down in Austin, Texas, where technology was a central theme. And, you know, their CEO, Martin Willoughby, you know, delivered some remarks upon opening that conference, just talking about how, you know, now here in 2024, 2025, you know, we're going to see change really accelerate here. And, you know, producers, you know, our industry, you know, they're getting there. They're starting to get on top of these things and you know, recognize opportunities to bring more technology, to bring digitalization components into their operations. But I think we're really at the point where we're going to see this take off, you know, in the next few years. And for me, that's exciting. I think that's exciting for us as a publication to see the advance of technology for aggregates. So again, we're going to hear from Karen Thompson, Kirby Klein, Stefan Giraudin, Jim Chamberlain, and Gary Baldwin. And we're going to kick you off with Karen Thompson, again with Haver Boecker Niagara. Let's talk a little bit more about equipment and technology. I mean, you mentioned maintenance. I feel like, you know, whether it's this Mine Expo, the last one, Con Expo, I mean, manufacturers like Haver Boecker Niagara are focusing on that. You know, that's a trend. That's something your customers are trying to shore up and address and get a better handle on. What do you see? I don't know if you had a chance to walk the show floor, Karen, but what are you seeing and what are you hearing? Like, what is trending? What's driving decision makers? Like, what sorts of things are they looking for, and what's driving the solutions that they're ultimately seeking?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us could miss the massive electric trucks out there. I mean, that is pretty cool. It's certainly the first show that I've seen this many of the big producers showing out there. But I do think there's a focus on maintenance savings or opportunities for diagnostics, preventative maintenance things, and I think partly it's the trend of what we see in whether in mining or aggregate. There is somewhat of a lack of, I would say, experience, hands-on experience. So I think that producers are looking more and more for the tools that can help them work safer, more efficiently, you know, smarter, let's say. And whether that's a little bit on the sustainability side as well, you know, we really do see people pushing for not just a piece of equipment any longer, but what can it do for me and how am I able to manage my business more effectively?
Haver Boecker Niagara has been doing diagnostics and analyses on, you know, on screens for a number of years now. So, I mean, it's not necessarily anything new, but do you see that interest intensifying? And I guess how did Haver Boecker Niagara get involved in that to begin with?
Well, I mean, it was really a self-designed tool to allow us to be a better screen manufacturer. I mean, we were using this as a quality tool, as a check on how our equipment was running, and of course, as an OEM, we really wanted to make sure that whatever we're sending out into the market is solid. We do, the 8-hour run test, but everything else. And we've developed this then really based on customer demand. How do I know when my machine needs a checkup? If I need to replace older machines, in which priority do I need to replace them in? We can offer a lot of assistance in planning appropriately and to the best spending of our customers, to, whether they're replacing or repairing equipment. So we really did start off with that note. Now we've gone into condition monitoring, which is of course measuring trending, bearing lifetimes, even to the point of utilizing AI in the diagnostics so that they understand what a trend is going to indicate as far as when a breakdown happens, what is likely the cause. So it's taking it to a new level, and that's really what the customers expect. They really want automation, they want to digitalize, and they want diagnostics that are effective and that aren't just telling them something's going to happen tomorrow, but hopefully 2 weeks down the road, and allow them to have a planned shutdown instead of a forced shutdown.
Karen, a conversation I've had with a few folks this week here at Mine Expo, just the idea that we're seeing equipment companies, in recent years recognize that digital technology is coming. AI is a thing, and so whether you're Caterpillar or Haver Boecker Niagara, you got companies that are traditionally OEMs that are making the equipment, but they're partnering or they're finding ways to bring the technology people into their organization and ultimately put out solutions in the form of technology for their end users. How does Haver Boecker Niagara go about, ultimately developing those sorts of solutions? And do you see that too, kind of transpiring in the industry, where somebody's really been focused in their long history on making equipment, making good quality equipment, but now we need to get these answers and data and information out of it. So maybe it's not their core expertise, but they need to find a way to do that.
Absolutely. I think, we've kind of grown into this as we developed it, but we do realize the necessity to actually build a department that is focused on this. It's not something that you develop as an OEM in your part-time business. This is something that requires a designated programming team, somebody that really understands not just programming of a sensor or programming of a piece of software, but they have to understand the math behind it. What is the AI that we need in order to direct this for the future? So it really does create a team that we need to build if we want to make this all around our equipment and offer the best that we can to the market.
Have you, in your career, Karen, have you really seen that shift from, really strictly, focusing on equipment to, more service, more technology as a tool to help service the customers? I mean, it's maybe one of the biggest changes I would imagine that you've experienced or seen in your time.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, when you're talking about a company that has been focused on engineering and the mechanical whereabouts of our equipment and making sure that that's right, to turn into somebody who is really looking at software development or sensor development or digital development, it really does change the workings of the company. But I think it's absolutely necessary. We need to keep up. I mean, I think right now we are certainly a leader in diagnostics, and if you want to keep at that pace, you have to invest in it.
Well, let's talk about equipment and technology a little bit in terms of, maybe what you guys are doing and what you're seeing out there, on the show floor here at Mine Expo, but maybe what you're seeing across the industry here in 2024. I mean, what's trending at this point? I know we had talked offline about, digital tech and sustainability are kind of trends. What do you think is catching fire here in 2024?
What I see, and even within my company, where people are looking at how can you monitor the equipment, because the people working on the equipment or working with the equipment, it just seems to be difficult to fill those roles and to retrain those roles. So the technology of the sensors and switches and all that is really playing a big factor in monitoring heat, vibration, things like that would affect the equipment, or premature failure. Those sensors are being put in place.
What's the starting point for a company? XYZ producer comes into the Masaba booth, or they're looking to do more predictive maintenance type of things or incorporate sensors, and they have no idea where to start. I mean, how does a conversation like that begin?
I think they either want it or they don't want it, right? Some people just want very simple, bare bones, and they don't want the electronics and the controls. Some people want the high-level controls. The challenge is always when you have the low level or no controls, then who's going to do the monitoring? In the high-level controls, it's do they understand the monitoring? So there's still training on both levels that has to take place. With job turnover in the physical labor part and the maintenance part, it's hard to stay ahead of the training. So,
who does do the monitoring at this point? I mean, I think it kind of varies depending on what the company is, or the manufacturer, the vendor, what their offering is. Maybe the dealers are involved too. But you talked about staffing, Kirby, and that being an issue, maybe challenge number one for your customers, our readers. So as they're short on people, I guess they still need people to kind of manage it, or are they looking more upstream to the dealers and or manufacturers to help them with that and just push alerts along when something's awry?
Well, I think the local support's always going to be a key. When you talk about who's managing it, I think, or monitoring it, it's twofold. It could just be locally through their system, or it could be through our technology that we have, and we see warning signs or flashing lights that's saying there's a fault somewhere in the PLC. So I think it can be on both levels depending upon how in depth you get with it.
How about AI, artificial intelligence, related to your company or industry wide, or in terms of what you're seeing here at Mine Expo or with mining and aggregates? Do you feel like that's making some headway, or are you hearing questions about that and how it's going to be used or not used on equipment?
I don't know that I can speak directly to it, but what I can envision with AI is it's going to be like the computer, it's going to be like the internet, it's going to be like the cell phone. Every one of those things changed our world and changed how we function as a business. Everything is on our phone today. We can do almost everything on our phone if you choose to. Countries around the world, Asian countries in particular, they have everything on their phone, banking, right? And they pay for everything with their phone, and it's a QR code, right? I don't know that we're there fully, but I think we're getting closer. And they work that through apps like, WhatsApp, WeChat, Line, those things. It's all done on that, and every country's a little bit different on how they do it.
Has there been anything you've seen on the show floor that's kind of stuck out to you?
Well, I think everybody can recognize. First of all, electrification is the number one thing going on right now around the world, and it's definitely something in the mining world that's been around for a long time. But for sure, it's getting more and more. I would say I don't know what to say, but it's getting more predominant in the mining, and it's now also to the aggregate side of things. So,
yeah.
Also, I think automation is one thing that we're really starting to embrace. Again, it's coming from the underground mining world and stepping out to the surface mining aggregates as well. So those are the biggest thing I've seen this week. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of taking a larger scale look, and the electrification and automation are something we've been seeing and hearing a lot of as well, along with topics like digitization and sustainability. I'm curious, what are some larger industry trends you've been seeing of late, within the aggregate and mining industries?
Well, I think, digitalization is one thing. We've been talking about data and gathering all that information for a long time now, but we are here this week. We can see that we're going to the next step, next phase, where you're truly using the data for, predictive maintenance, mine site optimization, operation optimization. So right now, I've seen a lot of solution provider for such, products that's really ready to go for market, and that's really exciting for the industry. So
Yeah, a lot of manufacturers are kind of taking the approach of let the miners focus on the mining, let them do what they know how to do. They don't need to know, in your case, they don't need to know all the inner workings and all that goes into a breaker. They just need to make sure it works.
Right.
So, how important is that to be able to position, to position yourself as a spot where, you can kind of, again, let the technology do what it needs to do, let the predictive maintenance play, and just sort of let the miners mine and let you guys work on it on your end?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, in our product now, we have all the telematics included involved, and we get all the data, and we work with the mine site or the aggregate guys to just provide the complete service solution, giving them more uptime, less issues, less downtime. So that's a key requirement for them. We also, thanks to the data, look at the TCO. That's what they want to look at, cost per ton, cost per hours. So with the telematics and all the data that we have on board on our equipment today, we can provide that to these guys. So that's what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned automation, and I know sort of in a similar vein, but a little bit different. One of the buzzwords we've been hearing about the last couple years is AI.
Yeah.
Obviously, it seems like every day there's something new coming out, good, bad, or ugly about it. So, still relatively in its infancy, but what role are you seeing, if any, AI playing in mining and aggregates now, and what do you think maybe the future holds for AI in the industries?
Well, I think if you're not looking at AI right now, you're already behind.
Yes.
But, for sure, we're digging into it. We're already working on some projects such as preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, production optimization. We look at things like how much you produce, or you should be producing, or you could be producing, and thanks to some AI models, we were able to provide with a little bit of data, not that much, provide great insight to our customers to try to improve their operations. So, but really, yeah, that's some of the things that we're already seeing in action. That's already happening right now, thanks to AI. So,
before we continue, a word from one of our Drilling Deeper sponsors, Techway. For over 50 years, processors of everything from French fries to frac sand have counted on Techway to provide the most durable, accurate, and reliable in-motion feeding, weighing, and metering equipment for their dry material handling needs. Techway specializes in providing tailored solutions that endure the test of time and material. The company's quality line of products are proudly made in the USA. Thanks again to Techway for being a sponsor of this episode of Drilling Deeper. Obviously, a lot of equipment and technology on display here, sort of a culmination of, obviously, it's been 3 years since the last one, normally a 4-year gap. But, in that time, and even, in the last year, or the last half year since Ag 1, the last year and a half since Con Expo, what trends in equipment and technology have you seen on the show floor, or have you seen kind of building up to this point?
Absolutely. So we've seen a few different things. One thing we're seeing is a lot of automation and autonomy with trucks. That's a growing trend. There's a lot of development, a lot of trials going on, which is exciting. We're seeing, more specifically from our product line, we doing water tanks and doing truck bodies. We're seeing a lot of requests for how do we maximize the productivity of our haul fleets. And what that means a lot of times is how do we lighten the body weight. Some people like to say, do throwaway bodies. Well, we don't like to call them throwaway bodies.
Right.
But we do lightweight bodies. Again, and that's really driven by a lot of different factors. But for example, the material price, so gold. So I mean, the price of gold is just through the roof.
Skyrocket.
So how much can we produce? How much can we get out? Which is a great trend. So that's really the big thing. How do we produce more? The capital investment isn't always in line with that. So how do we produce more with less?
Right.
So hey, I have the existing truck. I don't have the budget for a new truck. How can I get more out of this truck? That's a big thing that we see. And we have solutions for that. We do lightweight bodies and really almost from a consulting approach say, hey, here's some options. You can go this way, you go this way. And so that's a big trend we see. Another trend we see is just from workforce.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's struggling with workforce, and then you find somebody good, and then how do you retain them? Well, from a workforce standpoint, from a equipment operator standpoint, it's hard to continue to keep operators or find good qualified operators. So one trend that we're starting to see is on water tanks specifically, for example, they have the tanks, but they don't have the personnel to run the tanks. So what we're, in a couple different cases recently, we're seeing how can we increase the size of our water tank because we don't have enough personnel to run all the tanks that we have. So how do we be, again, back to being more efficient with the equipment we have? So we're seeing a little bit of a trend to go with a larger water tank because they need to be more efficient and less time going back to refill rather than just because they don't have the people to. So they might be parking a truck or exchanging one truck or two trucks for one truck to downsize but go larger. So
yeah,
those are a few of the trends that we've been seeing. Specifically, I'll say it on the mining side, but I think they translate down in the aggregate side as well. So.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the workforce, and I think pairing that with autonomy kind of leads me to something we've been hearing a lot and seeing a lot of at this show, but also recently. What kind of an impact down the line do you think autonomy might have in helping companies kind of address some workforce woes where they might not be able to find the people, but if they're able to either have an autonomous haul truck or automate certain types of the process, sort of doesn't necessarily eliminate the need, but allows them to operate without having those positions filled at the time?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think the answer is it's a little bit difficult because people are so critical. So no one wants to eliminate people, eliminate jobs, but at the same time, without having people, I think autonomy helps organizations run more efficiently. And I think that's an obvious statement.
Right.
But like I said, we are seeing a trend with autonomy. People are trying out, they're setting up with the major OEMs, setting up major new fleets and new systems to drive autonomy. And I think that's a good thing. Anytime you can innovate, anytime you can drive new direction, new strategies to be more efficient. At the same time, that opens up other opportunities with other jobs and other maintenance. So I do see that. We do see that as a trend, and I think that'll continue.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it plays out. From our standpoint, it doesn't really have a huge effect on our business because as long as the truck runs, our equipment can work on it.
Right.
So we're just there to support in any way we can. But we definitely see that as a not upcoming, but a continued trend.
Yeah, excellent. It's one of those fine lines. I feel like it's an industry where you're never going to be able to fully get rid of people.
Yes.
But being able to use it to your advantage like that is certainly going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the coming months and years and so on.
Absolutely, and it's a big trade-off. And I know each mine, each operation has to make that decision for themselves. And,
yeah.
I wish them luck with that decision. But again, there are definitely benefits. Anytime there's innovation, it's beneficial for the industry and as a whole.
Absolutely. So kind of staying in the same vein, but shifting gears a little bit, going from autonomy to AI, obviously been a hot button issue of late. Seems to be more and more every day coming out about AI, the good, the bad, the ugly of it. What impact do you see AI having on mining and aggregate operations so far, and what might be next in the industry with AI?
I would kind of fall back on the autonomy side of it. From our standpoint, again, since we're not dependent on that technology, on the AI, we don't really see all of the trends with that. I know that AI will continue to, AI is just taking over everything, every industry, not just from a producer standpoint, but just across the board. Again, I think there's a lot of benefits in that. It'll be there's a lot of excitement behind it too. If you can have AI and do things for you to make your life easier, to free up your time on a personal level, but even on a business level. So I definitely know AI is going to continue. I think we see AI rapidly increasing. In what capacity and how it will be employed, I think is what is being determined. But,
yeah.
But AI can be very exciting. It can be scary, but it can be exciting.
Absolutely, it can be scary. Absolutely, but no, yeah, I certainly understand that outlook. Curious what you're hearing, from an industry-wide perspective on what what kind of trends in equipment and technology you're seeing.
I think the trends that we're seeing, and I kind of touched on them a little bit earlier, but there's definitely trends to again, just how do we automate our systems, our vehicles. How can we, again, just maximize our production?
Yeah.
That's really the biggest trend we see, and that's across the board. Whether you're mining coal, aggregate, hard rock, or whatever you're mining, how do we get the most out of the equipment that we have? So, and I think those are, and then the workforce. So I think those are really kind of, I'll say maybe three of the bigger trends that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So we're excited to see how that plays out and kind of how that develops. But again, from our personal, I guess, business standpoint, our equipment will work as long as the trucks are running.
Absolutely.
So we don't have necessarily recommendations. We work with anyone, but as long as the trucks are running, we will work with the individual locations to maximize their productivity and get them as light a weight or long a life as possible.
So you talk about seeing a lot of new and interesting products. What is some of the stuff you've been seeing on the show floor so far that's been catching your eye?
I've seen a lot of AI stuff in terms of remote vehicles. To me, I'm not sure if that's something that's, it's obviously going to hit the planet eventually and it's going to take off, but I'm not convinced it's the way to go. And I think, personally, I look at that and I think it's important, and companies, as you said, are trying to do more with less and looking at more economical ways to do it and safer ways to do it. But I think personally the aggregate industry is still an older, what am I looking for? Like an older boots in the dirt industry, and I'm not convinced a lot of the people that run smaller aggregate pits are interested in that. They want to be involved in everything and keep everything going day to day.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's an interesting spot we're in, where you talk about the autonomy point of it, and I know that's something we've covered a lot as far as specifically the autonomous hauling, and it seems like the conversations that we've been having is that the aggregate industry is kind of in an interesting spot where it's not an industry that's ever going to be fully people-less. You're never going to be able to get rid of the people, but trying to find ways to use autonomy, use AI to sort of maybe supplement if a company's having workforce struggles or looking to maybe minimize or increase safety even, taking people out of dangerous environments. That's where we've been hearing a lot of that autonomy and AI might sort of slot in.
Yeah, and I think where you see a lot of that, Jack, is that we as a company are looking at ways to monitor the performance of our equipment without somebody having to go touch it and look at it. We started probably 3 mine expos ago where we have a gearbox that we put sensors in that were telling you the temperature, the vibration, and everything of that gearbox, and you either got an email or a Wi-Fi. It was connected Wi-Fi or cell service, so you got an email saying, hey, this gearbox or this piece of equipment has got a problem. And I think with the aggregate people, because their mills or their sites are so scattered, you've got a large pit that's spread over a large piece of property, you don't need to send a maintenance guy running around. So I think if we look at the safety and the cost of safety and cost of reliability, I think that's really where we're probably going to see the next step in the aggregate industry.
Yeah, and I think that kind of, this may have answered this next question, but what role do you see AI having in the mining and aggregate industry moving forward?
I think if you're talking AI and remote vehicles, probably, I'm going to say I don't really know because we're not heavily involved in remote vehicles.
Right.
But I think still, I do believe that the aggregate industry are still heavily focused on having people do the work. Yeah, and that's just my feeling. It's obviously going to happen eventually.
Right.
I don't think there's any doubt that it's going to happen with the larger aggregate companies, but I think the smaller regional aggregate companies are probably going to be a long time before they get down that path.
Yeah.
The largers, for sure, they're going to be playing and looking at ways to make things more cost effective and operate more efficiently.
Definitely. Curious what sort of trends or talking points surrounding equipment and technology have you been hearing coming out of this show? I know you obviously mentioned the AI and autonomy a little bit, but
I think for us, our booth is a little bit different. We're not heavily into AI, but we're more into the condition monitoring of our equipment. And I think it's important for our customers to know the condition of their equipment without sending somebody to look at it. So we always get an interest in that. As our company, we had a product that we introduced 3 mine expos ago that at this show we've got like the 4th, 5th generation of it to make life easier, and rather than having something we build into a gearbox in the factory, it's a stick on and it's a screw on. So I think, we see a lot of interest from customers in that the fact that we want to work with them and make something easier to modify what they've already got.
Right. And I think that kind of plays into something else that I've been hearing a lot about at this show, is that there seems to be a very strong mindset amongst manufacturers and those building these different types of equipment, and more so, I guess, the condition monitoring systems of, let the miners focus on mining. Let them do what they know how to do. We'll handle, whether it's the water, in your case, the power transmission, we'll handle what we know, you handle what you know, and sort of give them a peace of mind. And
yeah, you're right, and I think when we call on customers and we talk to mine managers or mill managers or quarry managers, whatever, yeah, they want guys hauling gravel, hauling product. They don't want people checking oil levels in gearboxes, checking their temperatures, checking, is this bearing operating properly?
Right.
They want somebody to go fix it when there's a problem with it. So if we can let them know there's a problem with it, I think it's a big advantage. So again, it becomes safer, it becomes more reliable, and it becomes more profitable for the customer.
Well, thanks again to our 5 guests who joined us at the Mine Expo show earlier this year in Las Vegas. Again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, an interesting time for aggregates. And I feel like for several years we've been hearing and talking a little bit about condition monitoring and trying to get an understanding of when equipment's going to go down, when components are going to break. And we're seeing more and more equipment get equipped with sensors to monitor. This Kirby Klein, I think it was, who said, heat and vibration and other metrics that we need to stay on top of. And, whether it's condition monitoring or something else in advanced technology today, I think kind of getting a handle on who's going to be doing the management of those processes, working with dealers, working a little bit more with your manufacturers, that's part of the equation here as producers are looking at more technology. In our last episode, we didn't hear too much today necessarily about autonomous hauling, but if you want to hear more about what's happening with industry technology, I would encourage you to listen to episode 27. That was the one where we touched on autonomous hauling and aggregates. We brought in Safe AI's Bibrajit Halder and Pronto.AI's Christian Kurasek to talk about developments there. And again, things are moving along here quickly in 24, and those gentlemen shared that 2025 is going to be another big year for leaps and gains in that space. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to go back and listen to episode 27, because there's more fodder on industry technology in that episode. What else is happening these days at Pit and Quarry? We're deep into November at this point, so hopefully you've gotten your hands on your November edition. We've got a conveying and material handling report in that, so it's something you can dive into in print or digitally. We actually, as we're shooting this episode today, episode 28, we're putting to bed our December issue. That's, of course, our year-end edition. We've got our State of the Industry report within that, and, pulled in a lot of insights, perspectives from producers, manufacturers for this edition on how the industry is doing here in 2024. And I think maybe just a takeaway for me is that this wasn't necessarily a record-breaking year for people, for our readers, for our marketing partners, for manufacturers out there, and for the dealers supporting them and the end users in the market. But this has been another good year in a string of what's become a good year, a string of many good years. If you read my December column, I actually just wrote this morning about how the industry, if you go back 14, 15 years now to 2008, 2009, those crash years in the Great Recession, that you kind of stack everything up, whether it's volumes, profits, whatever metric it is that you value, as an agri producer or an equipment manufacturer out there. And we've not necessarily had 30%, 15% gains every year, but good 5, 7, 10% growth years year over year. And, I was thinking about that recently, because I've been with Pit and Quarry for 12 years. I didn't experience the Great Recession, in this industry. I was in another industry at the time, and, that was painful for everybody. But this has been a heck of a run when you really stop and think about it. And kind of the outlook that I gathered from people in the industry for our 2024 State of the Industry report is that people are feeling really good about 2025. The same for 26 and 27. I think it kind of comes back to the fact that, we've got strong funding in place. There's infrastructure needs across the country, federally, states too, they're putting more money forward. And, that's really kind of the backbone or the baseline, I suppose, that's helping to fuel things forward. I think another thing that was shared to me about the industry and the state of affairs out there is that residential and non-residential opportunities should pick up in 2025. People continue to put data centers out there, and electric vehicle facilities are an opportunity. So, the nature of non-residential construction is probably regularly changing, and I think people are excited about what's happening with the Fed. And we recently saw another 1/4 point drop there following what happened in September, I think it was, with a 1/2 point basis drop. So I think there's potential for even more momentum there on the residential side to kind of help piggyback what we're seeing with the traditional infrastructure with roads, bridges, and highways. So if you want to hear from others across the industry, pick up our December edition here in the next couple of weeks. Check it out online, pitandquarry.com, and we've got kind of a look back and a look ahead at what's to come for all things aggregates. Other things you can look for from the magazine, the Pit and Quarry Roundtable is coming up on us fast. That's, again, going to be January 30 and 31 in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you haven't yet applied to attend or reached out to somebody from the magazine about how you can participate in the Pit and Quarry Roundtable and Conference, I'd encourage you to do so. You can reach out to me or Jack Kapansky, if you're a producer, and reach out to, Rob Fulop, Dino Vitanza, or Gianna Zucker on our business side, and we'd love to get you engaged or a little bit more information about the upcoming 2025 Pit and Quarry Roundtable and Conference. And similarly, we're really starting to think about what's going to transpire with our 2025 Pit and Quarry Hall of Fame. That's going to be taking place in conjunction with Ag 1 at the end of March, and we should have a Hall of Fame class here unveiled in the coming weeks. So if you haven't yet already, I'd encourage you to nominate a producer, a manufacturer, somebody who's contributed significantly to the betterment of our industry. It could be somebody from the long past of aggregates, or somebody who's still actively working in the industry. And you can make your nominations at pitandquarryhallofame.com. On the roundtable, you can learn a little bit more too at pitandquarryroundtable.com. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We'll have another one for you here in another couple of weeks. But again, for Jack Kapansky, who wasn't here, I'm Kevin Yannick, and looking forward to you joining us again next time.